Hey guys, what's up? Absolute Beast here, bringing you a 4-piece today. So there's actually 4 races here that I did. These are quick little like showcase events, so just one lappers usually. This one's with the Porsche Carrera GT, which I absolutely love. Oh no! See, man, I don't even know what I'm talking about. This is a Porsche 918 Spider, and then you have a Huracan. And then a Ferrari FF, which I'm really not a fan of. The looks, I think, are atrocious. And then Koenigsegg Agera at the end. So I wanted to talk today about something that I've gotten in a discussion with a bunch of you guys in the comments, and that is wheel versus controller. So, I mean, honestly, I feel like it's a matter of preference, and I'm pretty excited that with Forza Motorsport 7, they're doing the crossplay. You know, Xbox will be able to play against PC, you know, that means that people, and they've said that means that people with wheels will be playing against people with controllers, and honestly, I don't see any issue with that whatsoever. A lot of people are purists, either one way or the other, you know, I would say I'm more a controller purist, but I don't think that wheels shouldn't be allowed. I think they're perfectly acceptable that the people use them, and I look forward to the challenge. In fact, one of the tunes I use in R class on my GTR, the Ultimate GTR, is a Daytona tune, and in the description of the tune it says fast tune but hard to drive without a 900-degree wheel, and it's something that I struggled with when I first downloaded the tune. But you know, here's the issue for me. So like I said before I get started, I am a controller guy, so that's sort of my bias. I don't have anything against wheels. I just personally wouldn't use one, so I'm coming at it from my point of view, which would be someone that prefers a controller. But I'm trying to see both sides of it. So, you know, wheel. I'll start with the wheel. You have incredible immersion with a wheel. The feel that you get, as far as actually driving, is ridiculous. Feel that you get of actually driving, the force feedback you get, which is something they've drastically improved in both Forza Motorsport 7 and Project Cars 2. Something that's very improved. And I don't know why that started in the middle of the race. That's kind of weird. Well, okay then. So the force feedback is fantastic. You know, you get to know exactly what the tires are doing based on the wheel, and of course it depends on your wheel. You know, I don't think all wheels have force feedback, or I'm pretty sure most of them do. But you know, obviously, the nicer wheel you have, the more feedback you're going to get, and all that kind of stuff. And so, you know, it's just a level of immersion. You know, you get more control. You can, you know, one of you guys pointed out, you can actually steady your car a little bit easier when you're going down a straight and stuff like that. By the way, these backfires from this Huracan are ridiculous. Anytime you downshift or come off the gas, it's just pop, 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 pop. Here, let's see if we can get one here. I'll do one when I slow down at the next turn. So, you know, just the sense of, you know, actually driving. You know, if you're talking about driving simulator, that was a good pass right there. Okay, check out these pops right here. So yeah, I mean, you're talking about, you know, being like a full sim, wanting that experience. I mean, a wheel would absolutely be the way to go. And, you know, in a former life, maybe I would have used a wheel, or, you know, depending on down the road, I might look into them and see, you know, get one just for things here and there. But to me, you know, for me, the part of the video game that I like is, you know, doing it with your thumbs and just your hands. I don't want to have to push a pedal. Don't want to have to do any of that stuff. And, you know, I mean, I could see it being a lot of fun, as far as actually driving and stuff like that. But I don't know. I don't see it something that I could do for a couple hours at a time. But again, if you're talking about immersion, then there's you know. But I mean, with a wheel, you got to come up with a place to mount it. You have to have something, you know, obviously to sit in while you're driving it. You know, and it's got to be a good position, and you have to get everything at the right height, and you've got to make sure everything's at the right length. It just, for me, it sort of goes to the same thing I've said before about, you know, like Forza Motorsport 7 versus Project Cars 2, which is, in my opinion, you know, just the already, like, kind of pre-set up nature of Forza Motorsport makes it a lot more approachable. You can just sort of put in the game and play. You don't have to worry about setting up your wheel, and, you know, maybe some of you have it fixed, or you have the racing seat and all that, but I mean, you know, it's another level of something you have to go through, and it seems like a lot more physical work to me than I want to do. I mean, you know, I guess I'm kind of a lazy guy, but it's not about that. It's just about, you know, I don't want to be doing that much physical activity. You know, if I did, I wouldn't be playing a video game. So that's just my opinion. But as far as control you have with a wheel, and precision you have with a wheel, and immersion you have with a wheel, I don't think you can beat it. And ultimately, that'd be the way to go. One of the things that absolutely blew me away when they were talking about Project Cars 2 was Andy Tudor had said that their game was so immersive that when people were playing it on the virtual reality headset, like real race car drivers are playing it on the virtual reality headset, if they crashed, they would release the wheel. And they would, do their crash bracing thing, which I thought was epic. I mean, obviously these people are trained to do that, so this is what their life is. They drive every single day, and so these are like second nature to them. But just the fact that they could be playing a simulator, driving simulator, on a video game, just wearing a headset, and when they crash, they would release and do their crash bracing thing, and I thought that was just so epic. Think about that level of immersion. So obviously you were going for like full immersion, a wheel would be the way to go. But moving on to the controller aspect of things, in my personal opinion, I've hooked on the controller since Forza Motorsport 5. When the Xbox One launched, it had, the rumbles in the triggers, so you can experience, real feedback through that. And so for me, I mean, one of the reasons that I and a friend or two of mine struggled a little bit with Project Cars was because of the lack of feedback through the triggers. So for me, if I'm driving down the straight, if I start to stray a little bit to the left and I start to, slightly go off to the left slightly on the rumble, it's going to rumble on the left side progressively worse. Same if I'm losing traction. If I'm gassing out of a corner and I start to lose traction, I can feel which tire I'm losing traction in, and I can feel it start to break loose a little bit. When I come in and I brake in a turn, I can feel, I do use ABS, so I'm just sort of a trigger mash guy as far as brakes are concerned. I mean, I'll modulate them as I'm going through the turn or use more or less, but I mean, I'm not trying to, I use ABS so that I can just mash it, coming in high speed, I just smash it, and I'm more about timing my downshifts, to get the car's attitude right. But, like this, like left side right there on the grass, and then right there, I wouldn't feel anything right there on the right. But as I come in and I brake, you can feel it in the triggers. Come in here, you can feel the vibration. It's very, very precise. You get more rumble, less rumble, like that. There's rumble there. Not so much there, but, it's very, very precise. Whether you get a little rumble here, a little rumble there. Losing traction a little bit, braking, you can tell. And that was one of the things, for my friend that does not use ABS, that was the one thing that he kept saying about Project Cars 1, was that he couldn't tell when he was on the verge of locking up, which, you want to be right on the edge of locking up without locking up. So for him, it was really hard to control the car's attitude and just slowing it down enough, because he couldn't tell. Like right there, a little bit of rumble. But for me, that's what really did it for me. I mean, I love racing games, and I've always raced them, since I was a kid. But more like I wouldn't say more like the Need for Speed type. I got into Need for Speed for a couple years, but for me, it was just really, really, really cool, and it really just added a whole other layer to the game, a whole other aspect of immersing me in the game, giving me this little bit of rumble. So for me, so for me, I like the controller better. Dan Greenewald actually said he had a little bit of a conversation with this with Matt Farah, who's from The Smoking Tire. If you guys don't know who he is, he has a podcast. And I didn't actually see the podcast, but I did watch a video where I think it's I don't know, I could probably find it and download it if I want to, but he was talking with him about it, and he was Matt Farah was actually a little bit upset that the esports, they were only using controllers. And so Dan Greenewald kind of had said, while the wheel would ultimately be the way to go, how are we going to tell someone who's grown up playing on a controller that they can't play on that controller, And he said, what we find is that there's actually people who are just as good on the controller as some other people are with the wheel. And I completely agree with that. I've learned on the controller. I have 1,000 hours on the controller on Forza Racing. So for me, it's sort of second nature to use the controller, and I'm very precise with the controller, especially once I got this Elite controller. And also the upgraded controller for the Xbox One S. Both those controllers are phenomenal. The Elite controller is a little bit better, but it allows me to be extremely precise. So I can do, I don't even know what we're talking about here. We're saying, what's a 180-degree controller, so I might be going, might be going 15 degrees, 10 or 15 degrees max to steer the car through like a big sweeping turn. So like for me, I'm able to be very precise. And that tune that I was talking about earlier with the Ultimate GTR, it talked about or in the description it says, you know, fast tune but hard to drive without a 900-degree wheel. And for me, I've basically tamed it. About 90 to 95% of the time I can control the car pretty well. The only time I have a little bit of issue is if I run across a little bit of traffic, or I have to make a quick adjustment, or I happen to lift off the gas and steer at the same time, just, you know, by random occurrence. Sometimes I get a little bit squirrely, but you know, for me, it's awesome to be able to really fine tune, you know, the controller. And I mean, you can change the dead zones and stuff, which change, you know, how much play the controller has before it starts steering, and whether you want a little bit or none, or all that kind of stuff. For me, I just find it, I find that I'm more precise with a controller. And, you know, I think in a lot of ways the argument between controller and wheel is very, very similar to the argument between first-person and third-person racing, or, you know, cockpit and outside the car. It just depends on the person, you know. For me, I race third-person, so it's very hard for me to feel where my car is and have sort of that, you know, spatial awareness to know exactly where I am on the track, especially when I'm racing in traffic. And so that's why I don't race first person. And I've actually heard people who race exclusively first person say exactly the same thing about going to third person. They say, you know, it's really hard for me to tell exactly where my car is when I'm in third person. So it's just, you know, kind of a matter of preference. I'm really excited that they're doing so much wheel support on both these games, Project Cars 2 and Forza. And I'm really excited that you know, you get to race with people who use the wheel and the controller, because, you know, each has their own slight advantages, but I feel like it's more what you're accustomed to, and I'm much more accustomed to a controller. I mean, I've never used a wheel on the console, but, you know, just, you know, to say you can just choose whichever one you like, I think is really cool. And I think racing games is one of the rare games where PC and console can play together without really either an advantage to either one. So anyway, those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. You know, controller or wheel. I think it's probably about 50-50, at least from what I hear in the comments, or maybe 60-40. But I'm really excited for either one of these games either way. Thank you guys for listening to this. I appreciate it. Make sure to check out some of my other videos. I've got a bunch that I've uploaded in the last 2 weeks that are about Forza 7 and Project Cars, and sort of comparing the two and contrasting and all that. I'm super excited for the games. Make sure you guys stay tuned. I'm going to have footage of the games as soon as they come out. Can't wait for that. And yeah, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss anything. Thank you guys for taking the time. I appreciate it. Catch you next time. One take. Woo!